you know, these slogans, build back better, stay home, stay strong, we're all in this together. Where do those things come from? Are all the companies getting together and it's like, hey guys, let's come up with a nice campaign?
Marketing, you know, like the Nike swoosh?
Yeah.
Something that works.
So we'll see where all this stuff from, because, you know, the next piece of this is a Build Back Better montage where in the United States it was put forth as this is what Biden wants to do, right? So
yeah, that was he couldn't even say it in the beginning.
Let's see everybody say it for themselves.
It's a very pertinent question to ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Wow.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it build back better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
My plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education, mental health,
the most influential doctor here.
Build back in a positive way.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better.
How original.
Written after coronavirus.
It's about building this country back better.
It is called The Great Reset.
Unprecedented opportunity to
I thought this guy's dead.
and reset the ways in which we live.
The great opportunity for reset.
Build back better.
Wow, even the prince.
Building back better our economy.
Build
back
better.
Better.
All elements of the Great Reset are fundamental to
International
building the
Military
future
Fund.
we need.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It's a big
wow, sorry.
Some would say to build back better. We would say to really have a great reset.
It's Vanguard at the very top, because Vanguard owns BlackRock, and then everything else has been consolidated under BlackRock, right? And so BlackRock is not only buying up all the neighborhoods, they've already bought up all the industries. So if it's Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, any BioNTech, any of them, they are all BlackRock companies. And as we'll see in a little bit how all this stuff works, where you have the agendas are set at the Roundtable organizations, and then now you have like a guy like Larry Fink, who's, you know, the CEO of BlackRock. He's also at the World Economic Forum.
No.
And when it's the Roundtable Groups that are saying, we're going to come up with a new crisis to unite us, right? So that the first global revolution they talked about, you know, they were going to use pollution, water shortages, and now they've moved on to climate change.
Yeah.
You would understand why CNN would then say the next thing for us is climate change, right? So
we're gonna hate climate change.
Yeah, so
then we had the Klaus Schwab saying it too, right? The next big thing is gonna be climate change, climate crisis, or it's not the change anymore. They've upgraded to climate crisis.
Right? So now when you see this in the proper context, it's not a surprise when they all start coming together. Like when you watch, like we showed the montage of like the Sinclair report where they put in all this is, you know, extremely dangerous to our democracy.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
That thing, right? So, and then Amazon.
Yeah.
Right?
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
It's the same thing with these other months. So we'll go ahead and do a CNN and climate change montage. You remember this guy, Charlie Chester, who Project Veritas caught him on, you know, in a candid moment, explaining that, yeah, the next thing for us is climate change. And then you see a whole, you know, rollout of the climate change agenda, because we mentioned way before, after they were going to do the pandemic lockdowns, then they're going to do the climate change lockdowns, and we'll start seeing that people are starting to slowly get diagnosed with climate change as a health condition all over the world.
We're going to say that too, right?
We now turn to one of the day's most interesting headlines. A woman in Canada has been diagnosed with climate change. You heard that right. Diagnosed with climate change. She had a problem. She went to an emergency room. A doctor attended to her and then wrote climate change on the diagnosis slip.
Yeah. So maybe we should change our name instead of Iconic Podcast to Simpsons, because we're predicting stuff at this point.
We should start focusing mainly on climate, like global warming, and so our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
Climate crisis, climate change.
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 Climate crisis.
Climate change.
Climate change. Warming climate.
Climate crisis.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change. Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate emergency. Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change. Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate solution.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate crisis.
Climate change.
Climate change.
The George Floyd moment for climate.
Climate change.
Climate crisis.
Global warming.
Climate change is real. It's the climate crisis. Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change. Climate change.
Climate change. Climate change.
Climate change. Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate crisis. Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change. The planet is on fire.
Do you think it's going to be just like a lot of like fear?
The whole planet is on fire.
Climate.
Yeah, fear sells.
Remember we were looking at some of these weather reports back from like 10, 20 years ago, just like changing of a color. If you pay attention now, if you're watching any like weather channel right now, anything over like 90 degrees is like this hot red, orange, the whole map is like red and all that stuff.
In 2009, look at the temperatures. Look, have a look. Right? Higher than 2022, but they've done it in red and fire.
The surrounding area is blue, you know, so it just like contrasts that red popping.
See, if I knew you were going to say that, then I would have showed the one where they did the elevated terrorist alert, right? So they used to do this exact same thing. So they used to have the news stations would always have this.
The color.
So this color band, right? So like a legend that says like.
You know where I know that from? American Dad. They had like, he has one on his fridge, I didn't know that was real though.
Yeah, they had that. So that was right after 9/11 where all the news started showing that. And so before that, they would only use that of like air quality, right? So green would be, it's nice. And so then they switched over to, hey, we can tell you how afraid to be. And so they have this elevated alert system. And now it's moved into the weather.
Which is interesting because now we have New York and California getting nuclear prepaerness alerts too, which again, maybe we'll talk about later. But you just said that. I just remembered the commercial from California.
Yeah.
So funny.
It was a PSA, I think.
Something like that, for Ventura County.
Yeah, man.
Crazy.
Nonsense is what it is, right? So
maybe we'll on some other podcast we'll get into that. There's too much. What was the next thing you were showing?
The next one, so since things are being shifted over to more climate change awareness, now the World Economic Forum says, well, we want to give you capabilities to do that, and so here's a clip from the World Economic Forum about how they expect this to go.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean?
Good question.
Where
who cares? Nobody on earth wants to do this, and this guy's talking like this is like a new Apple product that everybody's going to go out and buy.
New and improved.
Like nobody wants this, but you see that he's pandering. He's like preaching to his choir, right? People.
Do you remember the social distance thing too? Track and trace.
Yeah.
There's still an option in my phone where you can go turn it on, and then even though apparently we're out of it and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, let's hear what he has to say here.
Traveling. How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
Can't wait.
Stay tuned. This is something that is
not operational. Is this going to be a subscription model, or is it one-time payment? Because I can't wait to buy one.
Yeah. So if you think about, so they're making these like their consumer products, right? So when the World Economic Forum says you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, these aren't again suggestions. They're telling you what life is going to be like,
and you'll self-report.
Right, yeah. You'll have to self-report, just like in Australia they had to self-report, right? So they would get a phone call, they had to respond with the picture.
It was like some kind of emergency something. The idea was because you're high risk, you're going to get an alert at random times. And you have to be in your house and stuff like that too. So you have to send a picture within 15 minutes,
because
which will
send
send
has your metadata.
Yeah, geolocation, all that stuff too. If you don't do, then the cops show up.
There you go.
Yeah, because you're high risk. Because we will worry about you. Yeah.
I mean, they're looking out for your safety.
Yes, of course.
So now we'll see that this stuff is they're consolidating, because the United Nations they're setting up the United Nations to be this global governance apparatus, and so it's the United Nations that they're trying to push all of this stuff under. So the World Health Organization is under the United Nations, and so remember we talked about the pandemic treaty where they want to get all the nations to sign on to the so to give them basically this they're an all-powerful entity when it comes to viral outbreaks.
I think that one is still live on YouTube. I'm not sure. If not, it's either on Rumble on YouTube. You can watch it. Yeah, so it's the Director General of World Health Organization saying that they need these 5 steps for all the nation states, which are the states that are under the World Health Organization, what they need in order to be better prepared for the next pandemic, which they're saying 100% is coming. I mean, they said it, Bill Gates said it, Klaus Schwab said it. So,
and remember, there's the St. Paul Acute Respiratory Syndrome that they've already did the training exercise for. That's called SPARS from 2025 to 2028. They've already done the monkeypox simulation right before you started hearing all this stuff in the news about monkeypox outbreaks, and so well, this kind of dovetails nice with what we were talking about previously with you'll be tracking your own carbon footprint. We'll get this next video has this partnership agreement that has happened between MasterCard and the United Nations, and let's see what they have to say.
MasterCard and the United Nations released a new credit card, setting a limit on what you buy based on your carbon footprint. Here to tell us more about what is behind this whole new credit card scheme is OAN's Scott Wheeler.
The economy has just teamed up with MasterCard and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change to issue a credit card that monitors its holders' carbon footprint and cuts off spending when they decide you've used more than your share of fossil fuels.
Well, this new credit card, which has just come out now, it's a partnership between MasterCard and the United Nations Climate Fund. It's called Doconomy. And the idea is this is a credit card that it's all voluntary, of course. Everything starts voluntary. But the credit card monitors your carbon allowance, your CO2 budget on all of your purchases. And the most disturbing element to start out is, according to the World Economic Forum, is that it actually monitors and cuts off your spending when you hit your CO2 limit.
You are watching our highlight version of the full show that we did. To view the full version of the podcast, you can click the link below in the description.
Stay up to date with everything Iconic by following us on all of our social media. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. To support us, you can go to theiconiclabel.com and purchase a hoodie, hat, or gear. You can also support us by going to patreon.com/theiconicpodcast and making a monthly contribution.